That are truly timeless. We sell oil lamps for the times when the electricity goes out. We sell cast iron cookware, which is something that more and more people are discovering. We still grind coffee in an old-fashioned coffee grinder. We have both a man-powered and an electric-powered one.
They have a lot of very nice product here, but I've lived in other areas of the state and find that the popcorn's the best thing in the whole place. It's probably some of the best in the world.
And there's a good supply of what is commonly called penny candy.
We have wrapped and unwrapped candies, and we enjoy people coming and telling us we're the only place they've ever been able to find such candies as they remember their grandparents telling them about and that are not commonly found today.
And always present, the Raggedy Ann and Andy influence, reflecting the thinking of author Johnny Gruelle.
The Gruelle ideal was that no books for children should contain anything that would cause fright, suggest fear, glorify...
Either purchase insurance for their employees or pay into a national fund. That fund would set up a huge federal insurance plan to cover everyone who doesn't get health insurance at work. A new federal health board would try to hold down costs by setting national spending goals and negotiating payment rates for doctors and hospitals.
This year, Americans will spend more than $800 billion on health care. That's 12% of the gross national output and growing rapidly. Changing such an enormous segment of the economy will be complex and difficult. The Democrats say the only change that is acceptable will be to get costs under control and ensure that all Americans have access to health care. Robert Bazell, NBC News, New York.
Joining me now from WBZ-TV in Boston is Dr. Robert Blendon. He's a professor at the Harvard School of Public Health and an expert on public opinion about health care. Dr. Blendon, is the American public confused by all of these different plans?
The American public is confused about the plans, but not their problems. Let me just run down what Americans think and worry about. First, the average...
It really works.
And for a hot, soothing relief when the flu hits, try new Dristan Cold and Flu.
A military transport plane crashed in Evansville, Indiana today. At least 16 people are dead, all 5 on the plane, plus 10 on the ground. The plane from the Kentucky National Guard crashed into a restaurant and hotel just about a mile from the airport. ABC's Chris Bury is in Evansville.
Just before 10 this morning, the National Guard C-130 crashed into the rear of a JoJo's restaurant and the Drury Inn Hotel next door, setting both buildings on fire.
Came outside, I just felt it had to have been a plane, something that large. Ran outside, heard some screams, and the entire plane was engulfed in flames.
Most inside the restaurant were able to escape, but the intense heat and flames trapped people on the hotel's 4th floor and prevented rescuers from reaching them in time. The pilots had been practicing takeoffs and landings at the nearby Evansville airport. Several witnesses said the plane had just taken off when it appeared to lose power.
Just nosed over, the left wing just dropped, and he went right straight into the hotel. He was going straight nose first when he went in.
The pilot in charge of the training mission was a veteran flyer.
He's highly experienced, impeccable credentials.
The C-130 transport has been a military workhorse for nearly 40 years, with only one accident per 100,000 flying hours.
The 130 just doesn't go down, and that's what's baffling us all at this point.
The C-130 that went down today was among the oldest. Military investigators hope its cockpit voice recorder will help them explain what went wrong to the families of victims who gathered at a makeshift morgue this afternoon. Chris Bury, ABC News, Evansville, Indiana.
In presidential politics, it's been another difficult day for the Democratic candidate most people regard as the front runner. Not for the first time, there are questions about whether the governor of Arkansas, Bill Clinton, avoided the draft in 1969 by promising to join a reserve officers training program, which he never did join. Here's ABC's Jim Wooten.
At every campaign stop today, he flatly denied the charges. Yes, he had opposed the war, he said, but nevertheless, he'd given up a long-term draft deferment to make himself eligible for military duty.
The inference that that article attempts to draw is the direct reverse of what animated my behaviors. I put myself into the draft when I thought it was 100% certainty that I'd be called.
Clinton denies that he pressured his draft board for a deferment. He got one, however, by promising to enlist in the ROTC at the University of Arkansas. But he did not enlist, and after the 2 months in which he was most likely to be drafted, He changed his mind, he says, about avoiding the draft because some of his friends had been killed in Vietnam.
After he was reclassified 1A, he says that he was not drafted was simply a matter of luck.
I had no way of knowing what my lottery number would be. I certainly had no way of knowing Richard Nixon was going to de-escalate the war in 1970.
The story is reminiscent of 1988 charges that Vice President Quayle used family influence to join the National Guard and avoid serving in Vietnam. Today, the governor blamed Republicans for the charges against him.
I think it's pretty obvious they don't want to run against me, isn't it?
Clinton understands the potential damage these charges could have on his candidacy. But as he continued his campaign today, he left it to voters to, believe him or not, to hire him as president, as he put it, or hire somebody else. Jim Wooten, ABC News, Manchester, New Hampshire.
There was mixed news about the economy today. Orders to U.S. factories were down nearly 4% in December, but there is a hint that things may be turning up. Several of the nation's big retail chains, including Walmart, which is the nation's largest, say that sales in January were better than expected. Chrysler Corporation said today it lost $665 million last year, including $30 million in the fourth quarter. The chairman of Chrysler, Lee Iacocca, has long been a very loud critic of the Japanese. He says it is virtually impossible for some American companies to do business in Japan, but there are U.S. companies that seem to be doing just fine. ABC's Bill Rediker has spent the last 2 days covering some of them.
They came, they saw, they sold. The latest delegation of American manufacturers ignored the recent round of name-calling between the U.S. and Japan and got down to business. After touring Nissan's automated assembly plant near Tokyo, U.S. auto parts suppliers agreed to retool their production lines to meet Japanese specifications. Reason, not rhetoric, won lucrative contracts for workers back home.
Given the opportunity, the people will, in fact, meet those challenges and make the improvements and fit into the Nissan system and the Japanese system.
U.S. computer chip makers will also be doing more business with the Japanese. Intel, America's top semiconductor company, announced a major joint venture with Japanese electronic giant Sharp. Intel will manufacture flash memory chips, which, unlike earlier chips, retain information when the computer is turned off and make bulky disk drives obsolete. Sharp will incorporate these new chips into smaller, lighter personal computers, fax machines, and pocket schedule keepers.
Analysts say the agreement will help the $150 million a year flash memory business grow to a $1.5 billion a year industry in only 3 years.
So what effect does the ongoing debate between Japan and the U.S. have on Americans doing business here?
Makes very little difference. We've worked extremely hard together and with no problems, with a lot of respect. Made it very easy.
And potentially very profitable. Bill Rediker, ABC News, Tokyo.
On Wall Street today, the Dow Jones Industrials lost 2 points to close at 3255, and the trading was heavy. The Internal Revenue Service said today that it has made a mistake, a whopper, in fact. It mistakenly told 36,000 taxpayers last month that they were getting refunds. All of them have already taken out bank loans against the refunds that will not be coming. By one estimate, $40 million. In our next segment, the Haitians return home. For many of them, it's a journey into fear.
There's lots of ways to have garlic. The Kwai difference is the consistency of garlic qualities of this easy-to-swallow tablet. There's no better way to have garlic than odor-free Kwai.
Millions of Europeans have been taking Kwai odor-free garlic tablets for years. It's part of their daily diet.
Kwai is odor-free and so easy to swallow.
Kwai is available at quality drugstores, health and natural food stores, and general nutrition centers. Kwai, science and nature working for you.
If your feathers have been ruffled by downdrafts in the market, get on board something big, safe, and secure. GetNet. It pays.
Take a 3, 4, or 7-day fun ship vacation to the Bahamas, Caribbean, or Mexican Riviera on Carnival, the most popular cruise line in the world.
Every sports sedan is supposed to do well in the fast lane. But what about these lanes? At Lexus, we've achieved extremely tight tolerances between all major body panels. So not only does the ES300 look like it's put together well, it actually is put together well.
The U.S. Coast Guard took another 500 Haitian refugees back to Haiti today. The Bush administration is going to force another 10,000 to return as well, because they cannot prove they would be the victims of political persecution. That proof often doesn't appear until they get back to Haiti. ABC's Mark Potter is in Haiti's capital, Port-au-Prince.
Many of the refugees returning to Haiti today said they felt uncertain and afraid. Some said quietly they had fled Haiti